Hey, this is George,
Hey, this is Frazier.
and this is Real Talk with George and Fraser. And today we have a very special guest on our special show today. We have a
Yeah.
best-selling author, Mr. Bret Magnussen. I believe I'm saying it right, but He's here with us. Excuse me, on Real Talk. Brett,
Hey,
how you
what's going
doing?
on, guys? How are
Hey,
you?
how
I'm
you
good. How are
doing?
you?
I'm pretty good. I butchered your
Awesome.
last name, so you have to forgive me. Please tell us
Yeah, you got to pronounce that
listeners
one
what
for
your
us.
last
Oh,
name
it's
is.
okay. Depending on where I'm at in the world, it gets butchered far worse. So it's Brent Magnussen.
Magnuson. I was
Brett.
close. I was close,
Okay,
Fraser.
okay,
Close,
okay.
close.
All right. So you're a best-selling author. I've authored a few books myself. I know
Yeah, I
the
saw that.
struggles of authoring, and you're also part of a foundation. We actually want to get to all of that in this particular conversation because we admire people that are selfless, giving back to the community, pouring back into people. You being in the army, like I tell a lot of people, you could have got out and just left, but you saw the need to bring it back, to definitely work with people in that foundation and use your platform for that. So we definitely want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about that, but give the fans right now a little bit of your background. We read it, but I definitely don't want to butcher it. I have too much respect
Exactly.
for that.
Yeah, let's embrace the name of the show. Let's give them some real talk.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
there you go. There you go.
So yeah, I was born and raised on the mean streets of Oak Brook Terrace, Illinois, 20 minutes outside of Chicago. Please apply the maximum amount of security of sarcasm to that last statement. Um, I grew up as comfortable and middle class as you can be. Uh, Mom was a school teacher. Dad worked for the power company, and just had a great upbringing. Sports was a big part of my life. I started martial arts at a very young age. Started wrestling in fifth grade. Started soccer by the time I could walk. So for me, sports were a big outlet. I mean, these days, I'm 44 years old. So these days, I would have been ADHD, XQY, PWX, 22 medications, whatever. But back then,
They give it to you.
exactly. But back then, we had that outlet. We were outside. We weren't on a phone all day. We were
Right.
outside getting after it, doing what young boys do. And for me, sports was a huge outlet. And after high school, when I realized I wasn't going to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo, wasn't going to be the next soccer star, I always knew the military was a backup plan. My dad served, a lot of my uncles and great uncles served. So I was proud to carry on that tradition and enlisted in '96. And yeah, man, had a great time. Got to serve with some amazing people, deployed to some interesting places, learned a tremendous amount of lessons. And after I got out, took it and ran with it. And around 2010, met Tony Robbins. That was another big, impactful moment in my life as I was preparing for an MMA fight in 2010. And yeah, just some people come into your life at the right times for certain reasons. And not everyone's fortunate enough to have a guy like Tony Robbins pull him off to the side and give him some life-changing advice. But like you said, giving back, I try my best, especially for the young bucks out there. I try to do my best to pass on the successes I've had and certainly the failures that I've learned from. And hopefully some people don't make some of the same mistakes and they're able to have success much earlier than me and some of the people in our age group.
Definitely appreciate that.
Definitely.
I'm a martial arts instructor. I still teach besides real estate and everything else.
Yeah, I read your bio, man. I know we're going to
You
get
know,
into it, George.
and I say that because I opened my first school for at-risk youth at the East Orange YMCA, and so that is always very near and dear to my heart. I know what it is to work with youth and kids that kind of need to have that role model that they don't have in their regular life. And
Yeah.
I say it on the show, and I continue to say it. The dearest thing to me is when I see those kids as young men come up to me and say, what you taught me, you know. And who knew a guy at 25, 26 years old was going to have that impact years later, for them to be happily married husbands and present fathers and, serving in the military. I mean, I just had another student tell me, it was because of your training that got me through military boot camp, Marine Corps.
Wow.
So I was just,
Awesome.
Yeah.
it's to my heart because it's free. So I definitely appreciate and understand what you've been going through and how you've been doing it. you know. That's the inspiration that we try to get out on this particular platform, because a lot of times we don't see that in today's culture. Today's culture is about go and get it big, get as much as you can get, and everybody else would take care of themselves. But a lot of times, we forget that there were people in our lives, like you said, that came at the right moment, at the right time, that put us on the path that we had to get to. So it's definitely true.
Exactly.
Definitely true, and a pleasure to keep
And George,
hearing those.
George, you said something really, really important. You said something really important that doesn't get reinforced enough. And martial arts are so. And I know we're going to get into. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I know you're a kempo guy, and we're gonna get into that. And I appreciate and respect your multiple black belts. I respect your lifelong pursuit of martial arts. And there's really nothing better. And I can only speak from a male perspective, but as a guy who's recently married for the first time and as someone who now has a 9-year-old stepdaughter, I can tell you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is and will be, at least until she's 18 and she can run off of being fool on her own, it will be a part of her life. And it's not just for the insecurities that a stepfather might have in knowing that she could get, in a bad situation with a male someday. It's knowing that confidence that the martial arts gives her is going to bring her forward ahead of so many of her competitors, whether it's getting a job, going to school, getting into the military, whatever it is. She's going to have that confidence because she's gone through that really hard stuff in jiu-jitsu. And something you said that really hit me was, nowadays with all this instant gratification with, you can just go on Facebook and get your news. You can just, if you missed a Seinfeld episode 20 years ago, you were SOL. You had to wait for the replay or wait for the next week or pick it up on VHS. Now it's just, I'll go on YouTube, I'll check it out, and it's done.
Exactly.
So I think that hard work ethic, and again, this isn't me jumping on millennials, but that hard work, that grinding, specifically in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's arguably one of the hardest black belts to earn because it's at least 10 years and you have to put in the work. You have to physically roll and get strangled and arm barred and leg locked by all kinds of people year after year after year. And that is so humbling. And the same with martial arts, showing up 2-3 times a week, whether it's Kempo or Hapkido or Taekwondo or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever. It's that consistent, constant grind, and there's no immediate gratification for it. And that's why at the blue belt level, which is right around the 1.5 to 2 year mark, that's when you lose a lot of cats in jiu-jitsu. And once they hit purple belt, they're pretty much invested anywhere from 4 to 6 years, where it's like, all right, I'm at least halfway here. There's no sense in backing out now. I just keep showing up and I'll get there someday. And that's why I love talking to people with martial arts backgrounds, because they get it. They get that grind, and that black belt doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely. I just to build on that. My background is Taekwondo and Hapkido, but I've also studied a little bit of stick and knife fighting, and I have other tactical training experience just to grow my knowledge base. But I tell my students all the time, because when we were active and we were doing in-person classes, we have glass doors. So you see a lot of people looking at glass doors, and I tell them, I said, you notice every night people are looking and they're watching, and you're starting to see some of the same faces. I said, they wish that they were here training, but they don't have the heart to train. So they watch you train, okay? Because this is blood, sweat, and tears, and you're going to experience all of that until you get to where you want to go.
Exactly.
Because my goal in teaching my students, not to give a big history, but I always want to give them 1 or 2 things from the first time I see them. So I teach them a 4-fist punch and I teach them a front snap kick. Why? Because now when you leave, I can tell you, first day of class, I taught you 2 striking techniques that you'll be able to handle yourself, God forbid, if you needed to do it. You see what I mean? And we're living in a society now where those type of scenarios are happening more regularly. We're having more active shooter incidents in schools and every place than I've ever realized. I've been telling my students for the last couple of years that it's so real now. I can't give you 30 years of knowledge, but you need it. I remember back in 97 when a kid came to me, it was like, I just got mugged. He had a box cutter. What do I do? And I'm getting those conversations now every day as far as this, that, boom. And I'm just like, I've never seen it this bad before. So the discipline of the martial art, 90% of it is showing up. And Brent, I agree with you. You know, my 8-year-old is here. She's training with me. As a matter of fact, she just got her blue stripe, white belt blue stripe last week. You know,
Nice.
like you said,
Yeah.
I have to teach her a skill set, not just for the confidence, not for everything else, but in my mind, she has to be able to hold her own until somebody can come rescue her.
Exactly.
That's just my mind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, feel the exact same way. That's when I start. See me, I started old school way. My dad was old school. You had to learn. You had to discipline. You had to do this. I learned discipline for young. Then when I did go around, I learned my same way. My philosophy always been 90% mental, 10% physical. Always been that way. Because anybody can be physical. Anybody can beat you. Anybody can fight you. But when it comes to the last minute, what are you thinking? What are you going to do? How do you react to everything? You know, I used to see me, my background basically is I did martial arts and also did some military. I did search and rescue. So we basically had to train every day. There's no break. There's no resistance. You had to do this. You break a leg, hey, tie it up, bench it up, keep going. It depend on you. One thing I always learn to tell people, when you out there in a field, they depend on you. You can't say I broke. Oh my God, no. Say up. How can I be better? Wrap it up. Let's go. I got one arm free. Let's do this.
That's right.
You'll complete the mission regardless. You know. And I would tell the people at the boot camp, I tell them one thing. I always remember. Always when you start it, you complete it. It's not gonna be easy. It's never gonna be super hard, but it's only up here. Hard you think it, baby, the harder it's gonna be. You know. And I tell people that. And like same as that background. When I would say George, I did jiu-jitsu, all that stuff. But when I started studying Muay Thai, it was a whole different ball game. What I learned in Muay Thai, karate, Taekwondo, it wasn't the same thing. It's totally opposite.
Yeah.
You know? That's right. For the first time, you get to get hit with an elbow, man, and touch with
that. Oh, man. It happened the first time. I would, Taekwondo, you duck, you move, weave, bob, duck, you grab. I tried to grab the man. He came with an elbow like, whoop. I said, whoa.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
No, I never seen that before.
It's a brutal art. It's a beautiful art. It's a brutal art. I love it.
Man.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
My teacher tells me stories about how his teacher had a broken knee, cracked ankle, cracked elbow. He got concussion 6 times, and he's still fighting? Oh, yeah. Nothing. That's nothing. You see him?
Yeah, warrior spirit. You know, because I tell people all the time, Frazier, warrior spirit and heart. But here's the truth of the matter: you're only as successful to the lowest level of your training.
Exactly.
Okay? And because the reason why I believe that honestly is because if you never get to that lowest level, you never know where the ground is to put your foot down and start to rise back up.
Exactly.
You know? Just like in the military, although I've never served in the military, I have family members and relatives that have. And there's a reason why they strip you down. They strip you down to build you back up.
Break you back up.
Build you back up to a standard, that's military standard. You know, it's not just you, it's everybody. So everybody is almost a carbon copy because you're only as good as the man to your right and the man to your left.
Exactly.
You know, there's no doubt about it. And so
what mind, what sound?
So let's stop talking about martial arts because we could talk about this forever, but
we could go on all night, George.
Definitely want to hear about Ranger Up and that particular book, best-selling author. How did that come along? And before you answer that, can you give us just a little bit of what Tony Roberts told you, or was that just specifically a treat for you? And
I can tell you exactly what he said. So I had never fought MMA, and I started wrestling when I was in 5th grade. I'd done some boxing. I did Taekwondo for a couple of years. Then I switched over to, Chungmu Kwan for like 6 months. And then the school closed. So then I went over to, I think it was a Tang Sudo school or whatever. So I was doing all that stuff as a kid and wrestling in 5th grade. Once I started wrestling, I got a little further away from the martial arts because I really wanted to focus on wrestling. And then, so I had that background, and I always wanted to test myself. And at the time, speaking of Muay Thai, I had started a t-shirt company in 2008, and I was sponsoring some jiu-jitsu guys because I was brand new to jiu-jitsu, and I was sponsoring some Muay Thai guys. One of them was Kevin Ross, who's a dear friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
He's actually on the back of the book. He's one of the best Muay Thai fighters.
Yeah, in the history of I know him. Trust me.
And he didn't start training until he was like 20. or 21.
Yeah, it was
Now,
amazing.
if you know anything about Muay Thai,
Yep.
you're 3 or 4 years old. You go to Thailand, there's boys out there kicking each other all afternoon,
All
all
day,
night.
every day.
And the pinnacle of all that was right around that time when he fought Sanchai. Sanchai's arguably, at least for the last 30 years, him and a few other guys are the best Muay Thai guys of the last couple of decades. And he fought Sanchai's first fight in the U.S. They fought out in L.A. It was amazing. I was front row for it. If you watch the video, I'm that idiot in the front jumping up and going crazy. And he went 5 rounds with the best. And fought and one of the Thai judges had it a draw. It was incredible. And Cecil Peoples was the ref. Even Cecil Peoples was like, damn, like it was unbelievable. So being around these guys, and seeing what they went through and seeing the weight cuts and everything, I really wanted to make that walk. I wanted to know what that walk from the back that I'd heard so much about to the ring was like, because I was told you'll question everything. Did I train enough? Am I hard enough? Am I mentally strong enough? Did I diet the right way? Did I really put the road work in? Did I really run those miles I said I did?
Exactly.
And I wanted to feel that. And I was 33 in 2010. And I'm like, I'm not getting any younger. And I got plenty of injuries. I got a TBI from the military. I got, I broke my back. I've got all kinds of issues, and I'm not going to get any younger or any healthier. So let's get it. 2009, my mom died. And that whole year I spent moping around, putting on weight, being lazy, lowering my standards, losing my discipline. So right before the new year, end of 2009, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And like a lot of people, I saw an infomercial for Tony Robbins, and I bought all his stuff. And for the next week or two, all I did was listen to it. And I started getting out and walking again. I started redisciplining myself, started remembering what the military taught me. Right after the new year, I said, that's it. I'm doing a fight. I'm going to drop 50 pounds in 13 weeks. I'm 226 pounds. I'm going to fight at 170. I don't care who I fight. I'm going to go and get after it and get the best coaches. Let's go. So fast forward about 3 or 4 weeks before the fight, I'm at the Tap Out Training Center in Las Vegas. And Chuck Liddell, former UFC light heavyweight champion, is there training. And little do I know that he is flying Tony Robbins out to get his head right. Tony Robbins is going to come do the same thing he did for Bill Clinton, the same thing he did for Andre Agassi, the same thing he's done for all these people, Oprah, everyone. So as I'm leaving the gym, I'm smoked. I had a big training session. I'm flirting with the young breezy up at the front counter, pretending I need 6 pairs of hand wraps when I don't. And who walks in but Tony flipping Robbins, all 6'8" of them. And it was like, for me at that time, because I'd been so low, it was like Sinatra walked in the room.
Right.
It was incredible. And the owner of the gym walked up to him, because he's always got 2 or 3 people with him. It's a big deal. Tony Robbins is a big deal, especially if you're into personal development. Like he's a big deal. And the owner of the gym walked up to him and said, "Hey, real pleasure. Nice to meet you." And he said, "I want to introduce you to this guy, Bret Magnussen over here. He gave me your CDs to listen to, and it's really opening my eyes to a lot of things." There's about 15, 20 people in the big lobby. And Tony Robbins looks at me and says, "Oh, so you're the asshole giving all my CDs away for free." And I'm like, and I didn't even know he swore at that time, because on his CDs, he doesn't swear. He doesn't drop F-bombs and all this. I'm thinking he's like a pretty, Christian guy and doesn't swear. And to call me that was the first thing he said to me. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And we talked for a minute, and then he pulled me off to the side and he said, we just talked a little bit about that journey and what he had done for me. And I said, I don't put people on pedestals, but if I were to, you're the closest person I would go to doing that with. And he said, you got to stay true to yourself. He said, you got to focus on what you can control, and you control your destiny. And he said, I can tell you're goal driven and understand your goals and your visions design your life. Too many people spend their life working a job. You should spend the next year creating and designing the rest of your life. And the way he dropped that on me, man, and keep in mind, this dude's like 6'9", he's got big old Bigfoot hands, and like, he's just an indomitable force. And after listening to all his CDs, and it's just like, here he is in front of me, and he's like spitting knowledge. And I took that and I ran with it. And ended up having a good fight. I got lucky and I caught the guy in a submission in the first round and went on and really, really embraced that personal development journey. And so I owe a lot to Big T if he's out there listening.
Okay. I'm sure he'll catch it. I'm sure he'll catch it.
Yes. Hey.
So tell us about Ranger Up. I'm sorry, Roger Up.
Roger Up. Yeah. Ranger Up's a great company as well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so Roger Up, the book, Roger Up. So Roger Up is an Army term. In the civilian world, it would be man up, woman up, embrace the suck. Essentially, our mantra is when things have, and you touched on this a little earlier, I think, Frazier, is when you think you're completely smoked, when you think physically and mentally you're done, and both of you kind of touched on that 80-20 or 90-10 physical and mental. There's a big breaking point, and when you hit that breaking point, it's a cool thing. Now, when you can tap into that Roger Up mantra and understand that your body and your mind have at least 20 to 30% more fight in it, and you can dig down deep and embrace that reserve, it's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is applicable to anything, whether it's physical or it's mental, anything really in your life. And I think if more of us apply that, we can realize that we can push further and do bigger and bigger things.
That is true. That is so true. I tell my kid the same thing, right? Tell them, rule one thing. If a guy bigger than you, and what? If you're a small guy, and what? All comes down to heart and how bad do you really want it? Like how bad you prepare for it? How bad do you really feel that he's better than you? And I used to tell them all the time, when I played football, I was the smallest guy on the field. They tell me, you can't do this. You can't play this. You can't play this. What I did was, okay, maybe I can't, but I'll outsmart you. Eventually, I'll overpower you. Eventually, I'm going to beat you. Either way. After that, 4-time All-Star, when the division championship 6 times. So, I mean, it's proven that if you want something, you got to go get it. It ain't going to fall in your lap. It's not going to fall in your lap.
Oh, yeah.
You know my friend Milton we had on the show, Moon Milton. He had the same cue. He felt he was fat, overweight, couldn't do it. He inspired me to start Muay Thai because he was 300 pounds. I was about the same. We started studying about the same time. I faded off a little bit. I got lazy, faded off a little bit. Stuff happened. He became the heavyweight champion.
TBA, that's right.
TBA champion.
That's right.
At his first tournament. That was amazing. You know? Yeah. I mean, but that shows how much drive he had. He let anything beat him. It beat him again, but he learned from it. That we got to teach. You have to learn from your mistakes.
And it's that mental, like you guys are talking about. I'm gonna steal a little bit of David Goggins. If any of your audience is familiar with him,
love David Goggins.
David's a real deal guy, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said something that really inspired me. You know, growing up watching Rocky, you know, I've got some Italian blood in me, so watching Rocky is just like, you know, taking out the trash. It's normal. And I was listening to Goggins on Rogan's podcast, and he said, do you remember in Rocky, after Apollo had been beating the hell out of him for 15 rounds, and Rocky got knocked down, and Apollo's celebrating, and then he turns around and looks, and Rocky is getting up, and Apollo's entire soul left his body. Basically, he said, how is this man still coming at me? And even though he technically won that first fight, right there, Rocky stole his soul. And it's because he literally refused to quit. And it's a real beautiful analogy. It's a really beautiful way of putting it into perspective. And granted, not all of us are born with that natural grit that Rocky Balboa character had, but we can all find a form of that in ourselves. And it's just a matter of how hard and how deep we want to dig to find it, because it's there. It's there in every one of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, it's true.
People, there's a saying: it's not the size of the dog; it's the size of the fight that's in the dog.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. I love that one.
You always.
This is water, by the way. It's not beer, so
it's quite all right. But that being said, you know, the times that we're going through, you know, you always have to dig deep to get that little extra step. Yeah, we were locked down, but we're all facing a lot of different things in different areas, and it's very easy to slip to not getting off the couch, not getting the work done that you need to get done. Because I'm also in personal training. The silver lining is, okay, now I can train people I couldn't train before because I was driving to their house, but now I can train them online. But it's still a motivation for them to even go downstairs in the basement and train. And so that tells you why exercise companies are $1 billion industry. And when you look in somebody's closet, they got all this exercise equipment that they bought
Exactly.
that they don't use because it's that level of motivation and discipline that you need. That's why I always say it, and I'll say it again, 90% of it is just showing up, you
Yep.
know, because that 10% will always take care of itself. So it's definitely,
Oh yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
inspirational. And it's not easy. I'm not sitting here telling you this. I'm telling you this because I've been training since I was 14. I'm 46, and I've gotten to a place now where I'm training smarter, not harder. When I was young, I trained 5 days a week for 90 minutes every day, even though I was doing different body parts. But now I'm knocking them all out with supersets in 45 minutes twice a week. You see what I mean? So it's just that mindset that you have to put in
Yeah.
place and knowledge as your body changes for you to get to where you want to go. Because we're all sitting here looking for a mental quality of life that is better for us, will be better for our kids. And, we want to be around and be functional for our grandkids, mentally, physically, and
Yeah.
spiritually. You understand what I mean?
Exactly.
So it just doesn't stop there. You're the key to the destiny that you've been trying to get to. You haven't found that right key to unlock it yet.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Definitely all good. Brad, I want to talk to you about your foundation that you have. I
Sure.
know we've been talking about it, Frazier and I, off air, and PTSD.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to take this time with it, and I want to take every minute of 30 minutes to talk about this, because post traumatic stress has now a political term. It's been used as a political football for everything from funds to using military and veterans to raise money, to step on their necks, to do whatever it is they want to do. But my heart is for the people, because I'll say it in the terms that I understand it. In martial arts circles, yeah, you can be a national champion if you're doing a kata or a pattern. But when it comes to making decisions, only the fighters can stand up and open their mouth, okay? Because we were the ones that took the blows. I'm a national champion myself, so I'm saying that to say that, it's nice when you're doing all this pretty stuff, but for us that took the kicks and the punches, we have a little bit more sway. And for me, I'm saying that to say that our veterans have stood up and put this flag on their back and bled for this flag for years and years and years. And it hurts my heart, not just because my family members, but everybody's family members who serve, to hear terms like PTSD used specifically when they want something, or politicized in such a manner that I'm not a violent person per se, but I definitely could smack somebody over this. I'm sorry, fans. I don't mean to say it like that.
Mhm.
It's just that aggression of
Yeah.
it. So your work that you're doing with your
No, it's real.
foundation,
It's real talk.
please,
It's real talk.
can you please, your work that you're doing with your foundation, can you please explain to the fans what's really happening when a lot of people come home, what services are available, what your foundation is doing for them, and more importantly, how can we help? Not throwing money at the problem, because a lot of times money won't solve that, but how can we help in our time, in our space, in our effort?
Yeah. No, it's a great question, man, and I appreciate once again another platform to speak about this on. So at the end of the day, what it is I sit on the board of the Resilient Warrior Foundation, and a good friend of mine, Matt Davidson, and his wife started it. He's also a veteran and a jujitsu guy, and essentially what we are is we are a 501c not 501c3 nonprofit that we sponsor Brazilian Jiu Jitsu sponsorships or scholarships, if you will, for United States veterans and first responders that suffer from PTSD that they acquired in service to their country. And what that means at the end of the day is we basically pay for their monthly tuition to any jiu-jitsu academy of their choice anywhere in the United States. We've got guys training right now in Texas, in Florida, in Indiana, in Illinois, in Montana, and Idaho. And it's just going to grow and grow. And, people sometimes ask, well, how does that help? There's studies underway right now. And in addition to that, there's already been a couple papers published that show the benefits of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in addition to more conventional therapies, like, just really talking to someone, talking to a psychologist, not the whole medication route, which I'm against, but I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to speak on that. The more conventional therapies. And at the end of the day, if you just use jiu-jitsu on its own, what it really does is, especially for the veteran, and I can speak for the veteran, I can speak for myself, having gone through a lot of this similar stuff. The military does an amazing job, like you said earlier, George, of stripping you down and rebuilding you. The brainwashing is real. It's necessary. And I loved it. I was drinking the Kool-Aid since day one. Let's get a gun. Let's go do some good for God and country. All right, I'm in. Hoo-hoo. And what happens is when you get out, as amazing a job as the military does of training you and supporting you in your deployments and everything else, when you get out, they don't do a tenth of the job in transitioning you out. Now that's improving. I'm not throwing the military as a whole under the bus. We have a lot more organizations popping up these days. There's a lot more awareness being raised compared to, say, these Vietnam vets that came home and got treated like absolute trash. But specifically with jiu-jitsu, so look at it like this. The military does an amazing job from day one, which I can speak from experience of with Army basic training. It's 9 weeks. So I grew up with, if I didn't wake up at a certain time, I didn't have my mom or dad running in the room, beating me or spraying me with a hose. If I got up at 7 in the morning or 9 in the morning, it was what it was. My first morning in basic training, some Yahoo with a Smokey the Bear hat came on, the scariest human being I had ever seen in my life at 19 years old, calling me every name, half of which I hadn't even heard before, and banging on garbage cans, telling us we needed to get up, go outside in October at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and do push-ups until we threw up. And it's like, so immediately you are being exposed to having to deal with stressful situations. And as they go on, you get more accustomed to those. That's the reason you train so hard. I was on a podcast with someone yesterday, and they didn't really know anything about fighting. And I said, we were talking about training and building up for something. I said, look at this. The average professional boxer goes in, even if they're a knockout artist, they go into a 12-round fight at 3 rounds apiece, knowing they could potentially go 12 rounds. A lot of these athletes are doing 8, 10, 12-week camps. So in theory, they're doing a whole 1-week camp for a 3-minute potential round. And the same thing in the military. We're training and training and training, because the way you train is the way you fight. The way you train when you deploy is the way. And sure, in combat and in fights, something can always go wrong. But you have backup plans. You have contingency plans. At least you're ready to handle that unexpected situation. And with jiu-jitsu, the longer you're out and you don't have that framework, you don't have that structure the military gives you, especially if you're one of these folks that all you really know is the military. I mean, I got out of the Army after getting hurt, and my resume said high school diploma and Army. And I didn't have that structure anymore. Thank goodness I had really great parents, and I surrounded myself with good people. I got very lucky, but not everyone's that fortunate. Not everyone has a strong support system. And the next thing you know, you have sleep issues. And then you go to the VA, and the next thing you know, you're on a bunch of pills, and then you're drinking whiskey just to go to sleep, and the bad dreams start, and blah, 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 blah. Everyone's trauma is different. What jiu-jitsu does is it reteaches you how to adapt and deal with stressful situations. If you're a 150-pound guy and you've got a 200-pound gorilla on top of you, sweating into your eyes, trying to strangle you, and you're using the basic techniques of jiu-jitsu, just like the founders of jiu-jitsu said, I may not win, but I didn't die. I escaped with my life and I lived. And that's the whole thing. If you get out of there, and they're not going to kill you. If you get out of there and you learn from that and you go home, okay, I survived some pretty scary stuff tonight, because at the end of the day, I have to trust my training partners with my life, with my limbs, and it's a serious thing. And day after day, week after week, that confidence starts being built again. And it shows up in different areas of your life. It shows up at home. It shows up with your kids, with your wife, with your husband, with your work, with just external relationships. And the next thing you know, after a few months, after a few years, you're really feeling like that guy or that gal again that can really make some progress and get after it and manage these stresses and these anxieties. And, you know, I talk about it all the time. The people that do really hard stuff, you know, the people that do really hard things and try to do hard things every day, they're better for it. And when really bad things happen, those are the people that I'm going to surround myself with. If I'm at a bar and there's some guy on steroids standing on a bar stool challenging everyone to fight, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about homeboy in the corner with cauliflower ears who hasn't said a word in 2 hours. And you know he's got some demons. By his ears, you know he's been grappling for 20 years. That's the guy I'm worried about. And that's the guy I'm going to go stand behind if the whole thing goes to hell. Exactly. So that really, it's so mental. Yes, it's physical. Yes, you're going to lose some weight. You're going to learn some great techniques. You're going to learn how to defend yourself. But I believe the mental, the confidence and all of that. And George, with you being a lifelong guy, you're 46, you've been getting after it since 14. You know, man, you said and I love martial artists because they'll say that too. Like, I'm not a violent guy, but if I need to get down, I am ready. You know, my squad leader on my first deployment told me we are not violent people, but we welcome violence at any hour of the day. That is why we are here. We are sheepdog and we are peacekeepers. And if the wolf comes, we will kill the wolf. And that's powerful stuff, man. But you know, George, walking into a situation, if you're holding hands, walking down the street with your 8-year-old girl, and some knucklehead it tries to do something, anything, you know, you're ready for that. You've been ready for that for decades. And it's that confidence of knowing. And I tell people all the time, especially people that don't know how to fight, the more you know how to fight, the more you know how to defend yourself, the less likely you actually are to get in a fight. And people think that's crazy. But I guarantee you, George, and you will agree with me. I guarantee, because it's true.
It's true. You don't want to. Me.
Yeah, because go ahead, Frazier, and I'll.
Yeah, I mean, like at one point, you know, like, I can beat this guy. I can do this to this guy. In your head, everything, all the scenarios going through your head, like, all the things you're going to do, what you're going to do. But then in the story, you like, you know what? Is it really worth it? Is it really worth me breaking his arm, breaking his leg, or even really brutal violence to him? What are you gonna learn? A lesson that you learn from it? You know. Yeah. When I do boot camp, I used to tell the kids all the time: it's one person, you all suffer. Because you know why? Because you all as one. You all one person. You do something wrong, you all suffer. Because that's how you're supposed to be. You're one unit. And if you think that way, 9 out of 10 chance you won't get in a fight. You think before you react to stuff. And in the end, you're trying to find solutions. You're always trying to find the last solution. Now, can I talk him down? Nah. So, you know, you can tell we can talk him down. You know what? Go ahead and handle that right quick. But then, do you feel good afterwards? Let's be real about it. Do you feel bad about it? If you're not defending somebody, if you're not for a purpose, it's not you don't feel good about it.
Like there's no doubt about it. You know, just to add on what everybody's saying, it sounds cliche because it comes from a superhero's perspective and comic book perspective, but it's actually real. With power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
You know, and knowing what I know and what I have in my head and what I can do, it makes me very, very, very dangerous. I remember talking to a student one time, and she was like, "Oh, I don't want to learn how to fight." And I said, "Great. I'm not teaching you how to fight. I'm teaching you how to defend yourself." "Oh, I don't believe in violence." Okay, I understand that. But the person that's going to be on top of you or punching you in your face does. So what's your solution going to be to that? Are you just going to be his victim, or are you going to find a way to make sure that you can get back to your loved ones? Because that's the skill set that you actually need. You know, Another thing that people don't understand is when they say fight, 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 fight. It's not a fight. Okay. I'm not fighting you. I'm attacking. Okay. And that's the big difference, because in 2 or 3 moves, I'm putting you down, then I'm re-engaging, or I'm assessing the situation to re-engage another threat if he's there. I don't have time to be, "What's up?" No, none of that. I'm gone. It's over. The moment I move, I'm moving, and I'm boom, 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 boom to get myself out of that situation and remove myself from that situation. Yeah. That's the mindset, you know, and you can't teach that or explain it in a way unless You kind of been through something to know, hey, that's exactly how I have to move. You see what I mean? Because a lot of times we've watched street fights and people fighting in the streets, and you just sit there and you just shake your head and go, oh no. This is all too much Hollywood playing out in real life, but real fights don't happen like that. Like you said, Brent, the guy that's sitting in the back that's just smiling or laughing or just looking around or has this demeanor about him where he is checking everybody out, scoping everybody, surveilling, doing all these particular things, that you may not recognize with the naked eye, but he's posted up. He's always checking and looking, you know, systematically every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. I mean, my wife's driving my wife crazy. When we first started dating, Brent, true story. She was like, why do you always face the exit? Why do you always look at the door? Why are you always sitting in this? And my back is to the front door, and you're there. I said, because I never walk into a place where I don't know where all my exits are or how to walk out. So I am looking while we're having dinner and we're dating and doing this and doing that to actually see who's walking into, excuse me, into the restaurant. You know, not that I'm a big man. It's just that I'm with you. So who do I have to secure first to get them out? I got to get you out first. You see what I'm saying? You want to think about anything else?
Exactly.
It'll be great to just walk around and just be lackadaisical and all nonchalant about my surroundings. But I was never raised like that. And when I knew what I had, it became more of a challenge because, phrase what you said, there were times where I would use my mouth, and I hate to admit this, but I'm grown now, so I can. You know what I'm saying? But I would use my mouth to get into a fight. Why? Because I knew I couldn't initiate it. So I would say things to him to egg him on. What? You want to fight me? No, I don't think you want to fight me. You may want to fight everybody else here, but you definitely don't want to fight me. You know, please go find somebody else before you come back here because you come back here, it ain't gonna work out too good for you. Now, I easy could have just walked away, but I was saying that to get a response. Why? Because I needed him to move so I can move. Now that I'm mature and not in my 20s, I know that I've egged that situation on because I was supposed to shut my mouth and remove myself from the conflict or situation, not have a conflict, verbal conflict with him that would make him an aggressor. You see what I mean? But I wanted to reach out and touch him for what he did or what he said to me. You see the immaturity in that thought process. You know, like I tell my students all the time, not to go back to martial arts, but since we're talking about it, whatever you break, you keep.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. My tactical training instructor told me that they'll make a white belt look like a ninja in court. They definitely will. So you have a certain responsibility, not only to the situation, but to yourself. So the way that he taught us was he taught us all the techniques that I'm going to show you and teach you. You have to always demonstrate that you're in control. I can do this technique 10 times and I have the same outcome 10 times. So when we were doing compliant techniques or takedown techniques, they'd be like, why are you always taking to the ground? Because I'm taking them to the ground. I'm putting them right there. And I'm putting my knee right on his neck or I'm putting my knee right on his back to get the compliance that I need right there. I can demonstrate that technique. So if I'm ever in court and I'd be like, he did this thing, bang, I put him right there, right on the back of my, you know what I mean, on my left foot. That's where he is. I can demonstrate it 10 times. And no prosecutor can tell me that I was out of control and I was wild. No, I was actually in control because I could have dislocated his arm, broke his elbow, broke his wrist, broke his neck, but I put him on the ground and asked him to comply. Simple. You see what I mean? And so with that mindset, and especially with a kid, I also learned that you're also responsible for the mental stability of your child. Okay. In those particular situations. A lot of people don't know that if your child is definitely afraid of a threat, that means that you have to engage that threat to alleviate that stress and that potential damage to your child. Okay. And sometimes you may not be able to remove your child from that conflict until they see that thing. You see what I mean? So you have that responsibility as well, too. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy being a parent and not being young and dumb.
And that's like we talked about. That's like we talked about earlier, George, with having kids. And you have an 8-year-old, I have a 9-year-old, and I want to know with her training jiu-jitsu, I want to know 10 years from now when she's 19, if something happens, I get in a car accident or I die, it's my time, they turn off my light. I want to know that she has enough tools, and besides everything else we're going to work on, because are we raising a kid or are we really building up a future adult? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. And, sometimes my wife and I are good cop, bad cop. I'm usually the bad cop. And I'm new to this. I'm a stepdad. I've only been doing this 2.5 years. So I haven't read all the manuals. This is new, and we're learning on the fly. But I'm lucky that my wife's an amazing mom, and, she's teaching her the right things. And I approve of the way she parents, which is important, I think, especially in a marriage. But I want to know that if for some reason I do go early and she's 19 or 18 or 20, I know, and again, whatever happens after we die, but I can at least rest easy knowing she has the tools in her tool belt to handle situations, and not just the physical. Because of all the training, she's got the wherewithal to not necessarily have the propensity to get herself into bad situations that a lot of knucklehead teenagers, including myself, do. Not to go out and drink and not to be in bad situations, just to avoid a bad situation before it even happens. And I think, kids that have martial arts, they surround themselves with better kids that are doing the same thing. They're a lot less likely to go down the drug route. They're a lot less likely to go down the alcohol and the trouble route. And it's just really important for me. And just one more thing too that I want to say, because when I'm out speaking, I talk about this a lot, and especially when I have younger people, and especially right now, we're a few days away from an election. There's a tremendous amount going on in the country, and coronavirus, and there's just so much going on. I mean, you can turn on any mainstream media news channel and someone's complaining about something new. Yeah. Someone's a snowflake. Someone did this. It's chaos. And what I really preach, and I try to practice as well, is, just focus on what you can control. As important as my vote is, I can't control who's in the White House. I can't control coronavirus. I can't control who's wearing a damn mask. I can't control what Khloe and Kanye and Kim K are doing. But I can control what time I get up in the morning. I can control the way I treat my wife and my stepdaughter. I can control the standards I have, and I can control the decisions I make. And if people would take, half the time they're putting in the Netflix and all the politics and all the drama, and put half of that time into themselves, whether it's through personal development or actually taking up a martial art or reading an amazing book. I'll just pick up some of the books I got sitting next to me. Here's an amazing book, Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. How about Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill? Right. The Magic of Believing. This is just some of the stuff sitting next to my computer right now. And it's like, these things change people. Books change people. And you, more than anything I just said, you control who you listen to, and you control what you take in as far as content. And if you're taking in stuff like this instead of 14 episodes of the Kardashians, and I don't have anything against the Kardashians, it's just a nice example to use. They're doing quite well for themselves. But it's just important to realize that there's more to life than that. And this is the stuff that gets you ahead, not that.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Brent, real quick, I wanted to ask you, I know you were talking about you're not a doctor in pharmacy and you don't agree with some of the things that are happening, but just to touch on PTSD again, do you think that there are a lot of people in the system that are just overworked, so they're throwing medication to the problem as opposed to other types of therapies to the problems for our veterans and everybody else? Because they do the same thing with kids. They don't want to take the time to understand ADHD, okay, as for kids, so they throw Ritalin at it, or they throw something at it, as opposed to just saying, this kid needs, first of all, a different learning experience because his mind is working just a little bit different, and he needs a channel for all that particular energy. So do you think that on the military side of it and the veteran side of it, the quick answer is just a bottle of pills and good luck, we'll see you later?
Yeah, I mean, it's a topic that's sometimes difficult to talk about because, I still receive care through the Department of Veteran Affairs, and, in some capacities, they've been very good to me with, taking care of things. But I have no problem speaking the truth. And the name of this podcast is Real Talk. So let me answer your question with some honest, real talk. I think for the vast majority of people that come through the VA system with PTSD issues, I think, and physical injuries as well, I think the VA does a phenomenal job of putting Band-Aids on gaping open chest wounds. And that's an analogy, but it's a lot easier from a psychiatric perspective to bring in someone that's suicidal or is just depressed or having anxiety. It's so much easier. And again, we get back to that instant gratification that we're living in. I think it's so much easier for the psych in that white coat to listen to you for 5 minutes. And I've been there and I've done it. So I can tell you from experience, that's how it happens. You sit down, you go through your name, your social, all that drama. What happened? You got TBI, you got some drama, you got this, you got that. Cool. 7 minutes later, max, medication is brought up. Now, I don't know if that's coming from Big Pharma. I don't know if that's coming from the VA. I don't know who it's coming from, but it's coming, and it's coming by the bucketful. And the problem is that is not always the right solution. I can tell you from experience. Now, it's amazing because I know so many guys that were straight shooters, meaning they never drank growing up. They never did drugs. They were the athlete. They joined the military. They did their thing. They got injured. They got out, and now they're dealing with the demons. And some of these guys that I've seen, friends, and I have a few people that are friends that are on that list of 22 a day that kill themselves. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to go see their families, and you don't know what to say because their 28-year-old son just blew his head off in his bedroom, and they had to walk in and see that. And this is real stuff. This is real stuff that happens to real people, and real families have to live with this for the rest of their lives, wondering because a note wasn't left, wondering what those demons were and what could have helped. And it's a real shame when you see the other steps, like you say, and the long-term steps, like, okay, well, let's take step one and say, how about we talk about all this first? Let's take a few weeks and have a few meetings per week with a psychologist or a social worker and talk through these issues. Because at the end of the day, like you guys said earlier with fighting, it's a lot easier to talk someone down than trade punches with them.
That's
and
right.
escalating that situation is so important. And I wish just the medical field in general, when it comes to the psychiatrics, would do a better job of de-escalating, if you will. Let's actually have some discovery here and learn some more about you before you walk out with 3 new medications. And then the next thing with all this pain. Now, my wife's a chiropractor, and I am so blessed to have her in my life. And I didn't know she was a chiropractor when I met her. We had a couple of dates, and then I found out she's a chiropractor. I'm very fortunate. She has her own clinic, so I can get treatment in there whenever I want. And that's a holistic approach. Doing hyperbaric chamber therapy is a holistic approach. Hypnosis is a holistic approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy, prolonged exposure therapy. There's no medications required for any of these. Yet, if you got sore knees, the VA is going to throw pills at you. They're not going to send you to a chiropractor. They're not going to send you to a hypnotist to help with sleep. They're going to give you sleep pills. And then after the sleep pills, they're going to tell you need some other pills. And the next thing you know, you wake up, you got 9 pills. You're 10 times crazier in your head than you were a year ago before you had any medications. And then you see guys and gals with the pain pills getting hooked on that. They can't support that anymore. So they move from the pain pills to heroin. They get some bad heroin because they don't know what it is, and they overdose on heroin. And here you go. You have American heroes, patriots of this country, overdosing on heroin because they got hooked on pain pills because a physician didn't take enough time to say, well, let's really get to the root cause of this issue. And I know I'm on my soapbox right now, and I'm yelling and hollering on your podcast, but it's so important to me because I have seen so much damage done. And that's why this Resilient Warrior Foundation, man, I'm not going to talk about medication with any of these cats, guys or gals. And 1, it's not my job because I'm not a doctor. But 2, I know that that's not the route. I will take jujitsu, a chiropractor, some hypnosis, and a hyperbaric chamber therapy any day of the week and twice on Sunday over a handful of pills. And that's just me.
Well, let me touch back on that. It is a touchy situation because I saw a series, you probably said Navy SEAL, and they had an episode on there where his friend was suffering from PTSD, and he went to the VA, They did everything. They said they're gonna do this for him, do this for him, do this for him. Did absolutely nothing. Then the last minute, he told the doctor and asked him, "Can you help me by prescribing this to me and put it to the board so they actually give him the medication he needs?" They said no. And the friend go back what you said, went back and actually put a bullet in his head because he was so depressed for pain, mental issues he was suffering, dreams, everything. And it hurt my feelings. Because I had a friend in the military, it did almost the same thing. Now, let me ask you a question. In a book, it said about blueprint. If you had opportunity to actually map out a blueprint to improve that system, what would it be?
There it is, Frazier. You took my question.
Yeah, man. Frazier over here getting after it. Yes, I appreciate it. And by the way, Frazier, I appreciate the $120 blouse, and I appreciate the beard, sir. Looking cleaner than the Board of Health. I appreciate it. But it's a great question. If I had to design a blueprint for dealing with veterans, specifically with PTSD, when they're getting out, I would get to the root cause early. I would make sure that I'm having the veteran be proactive in not just having to go in when they get out for a mandatory psych eval, which half of us know because we're all told after deployments, don't go to psych with a bad attitude. You know you have to go to psych. We just got back from a deployment. If they ask if anything's wrong, nothing's wrong because you want to deploy again, right? You want to do your job again, right? So nothing's wrong. And that gets ingrained in a lot of these guys and a lot of these gals. I would make sure that there's mandatory, 2 or 3 visits in the first 6 months to go to the VA. I don't like to say mandatory, but strongly encouraged. And from there, going over everything and assessing the problems before they potentially get bigger. Let's be honest here, okay? It's you and me. I'm the social worker or I'm the psychologist. I cannot prescribe medication. I am not a psychiatrist. All we're going to do is talk. And we're going to talk about some real stuff. And we're going to talk about some real solutions to any potential problems you have. If you have pain, I want to first and foremost recommend you go to a chiropractor and get an adjustment and get your x-rays and take that more holistic approach instead of going to a doctor, telling them your knee hurts. Next thing you know, you're a 26-year-old guy with a knee replacement. I would really disencourage the medication route until a certain standard of other therapies were offered and exhausted. Not just I went to one chiropractor one time and now my knees hurt. Give me some pills. Give me surgery. I would almost have steps in place for you have to check these boxes off before we get to the last straw. And listen, I'm very against medication because I've seen what it's done to other people. I know what it did to me, and it affects you negatively for the most part. And I don't know many people that were on serious medications that are now off them that loved that experience. And you can talk to most of their spouses and they didn't love it either. So instead of masking the problem with that and throwing pills at it, I would get to the core root issue of it. And I would use the VA in conjunction with a plethora of amazing nonprofits out there, like the Resilient Warrior Foundation that I'm so blessed to be a part of and sit on the board of, and start looking at alternative therapies because obviously something's not working. There's a reason we're losing 22 veterans a day. And the last time I checked, George and Frazier, 17 of those 22 veterans a day that are killing themselves are on a minimum of 3 prescription medications. And out of those 3 minimum medications that those 17 out of 22 veterans are on, they're all for either sleep, anxiety and depression, psych meds, or pain. And when you mix all of those, and that's not even talking about throwing alcohol in the mix and just regular everyday life and kids and a family and work and everything else that's stressful in life becomes unbearable. And that would be, again, man, I should start working on that. I don't know who will listen to it, but it's so important, man. And it's a great question. And I hope I answered it all right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way to do it. I mean, I don't get medication too. I'm fond of mental medication and stuff like that because I don't see a point in it. You know, I feel like you should be able to solve the problem without using medication. And the fact of the matter is, someone that are psychologists that prescribe it is a big red flag, because your job is to talk the person down, understand the problem, initiate the problem, and then find a solution to the problem. It didn't say when you finish school, talk to the person, give medication. Talk to them, give medication. Talk to them, give medication. No, it said be the problem, observe the problem, solve the problem. If you can't find an alternative to the problem, it always goes to the steps, evaluate the steps of how far the person learns. They don't do that. Some people, very few you see do that. And go back to that, Brent, it's true. They did a lot of that. A lot of veterans will be treated differently and react differently to situations, especially catastrophic events that happened in the past or while they're deployed. Not being properly debriefed when they come home, saying, look, this is going to happen to you. This is going to make happen this. This is going to do this. They don't tell you that. When they debrief you, that's it.
Well, the thing is, if we just have to be honest and have a real talk about this, there's also a price tag attached to that. There are dollars out there to help with that. And, being a certified sports nutritionist, I understand. I agree with all you guys when it comes to that, because I don't take any type of pharmaceutical medicine simply because it's a synthetic thing that my body doesn't do good with synthetic medicines. Okay. If I have pain, give me white willow bark. Don't give me an aspirin. You know what I mean? If I have a high amount of inflammation, now that I can take CBD, give me CBD. Let that help with my inflammation.
Oh God, yeah.
To, ibuprofen or anything of that nature. So that's always my approach to it, to let the body heal itself naturally. But I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. You're sitting here in a practice. Maybe you have college debt. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have high expenses. And the easy solution is to write these scripts that you're getting a kickback on to help get you out of the situation that you're in. You see what I mean? And that's what we're seeing a lot more of than the actual helping of the people, because the people now are just herded as numbers and a price tag to get certain things done. And we need to have more about this conversation, because 22 is a high number, and it's still not effective. Like, we haven't seen anything to bring those numbers down sufficiently. So that means that, we all got to stay on our platforms and scream to high heaven until people start paying attention to exactly what's happening there. Brett, I want to thank you for coming on to our show and having a real conversation with us, man. And everybody check out Roger Up, and also check out his foundation. We'll link it here to our video on Facebook as well, too, for you guys to donate and contribute. And I just want to say thank you, Bren, man, for coming on the show. Hey, this is George.
This is Frazier.
And this is Real Talk. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.